Okay, can anyone see me? Can everyone hear me in the chat? Very quickly. Just making sure we're ready to go. Cracking. Anyways, welcome everybody. Welcome to the first of the new daily show here on the channel. The MPB morning show. Echoing. One sec. Is that a bit better? Is that a bit better now? One second. Sorry guys, trying to fix the echo. Let me. Is that a bit better? Oh, are we all good? There we go. I think we're better now. Lovely. Anyways, really sorry about that, guys. Shall we get into the stream? So, welcome everybody to the first edition of the new MPB morning show, where we're going to go through the latest news, all the latest topics, and allow me and you to talk to each other about everything Manchester United. And we're going to start off today with possibly the biggest topic of conversation at the moment, and that is Erik Ten Hag. So, Very recently, we've had some reports, as you can see scrolling across the screen, that Ten Hag is looking increasingly more likely to stay as Manchester United manager. I'm seeing some people in the chat call out Robert De Zerbi. I'm seeing some people in the chat call out Thomas Frank. In my opinion, Erik Ten Hag at the moment looks set to stay. There doesn't seem to be a viable candidate on the market for him. We've got Kieran McKenna, but he signed a new long deal contract at Ipswich. His agent seems to have played everyone, by the looks of it. When is the decision, says Sunil Dewan? We don't really know. There's a full season review of not just this season, but also last season as well. Simon Stone brought that out earlier yesterday. And so that will look to probably go into later this week, and we'll probably know midweek. So what's everyone else saying? Is Robert De Zerbi time? Robert De Zerbi will not be coming to Manchester United, unfortunately. He didn't seem to be in the shortlist and didn't seem to be really a viable option the club is looking at. And to me, Erik Ten Hag with that final performance does deserve to stay a little bit longer. I think that is the best performance I've seen against Manchester City in years. He looked at Kevin De Bruyne, he looked at Phil Foden, he looked at Erling Haaland, and went and just laughed, shrugged them off, and just put them aside, and just essentially forced City to go down using their wingers, use Jeremy Doku, and he put him so cleverly up against Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Wan-Bissaka came out on top, and Doku only got his goal through an Onana mistake. So to me, that final was an Erik Ten Hag masterclass. And for that reason, I do think that he should stay on as Manchester United manager. What are the percentage of Erik Ten Hag staying? To be honest, mate, I don't really know. By the looks of it at the moment, I think it's a pretty solid chance that he's staying, mainly due to the fact that there is no current other manager on the market who I think can really supplement what he does. Thomas Tuchel is a man. Does anyone in the chat want to keep Thomas Tuchel? WY thinks Tuchel is better than Ten Hag. Anyone else? He's already been sacked. I don't believe he's already been sacked. There was a lot of rumblings before the FA Cup final. In fact, Jacob Steinberg broke it that Ten Hag will probably be leaving. But it seems there's been quite a change in the decision in that. Tuchel, bring Tuchel. Lots of Tuchel in the chat. Lots of Tuchel. Can anyone tell me why Tuchel? To me, I look at Tuchel and I see a very similar manager to Ten Hag, in that they're both very effective in cup games. Like, you look at Ten Hag in the season against Liverpool, against City, even against Coventry. He's been fantastic. He's got results out of his arse at times. That game against Liverpool is one of my favourite games since Sir Alex Ferguson. 38 games is a better representation of what you can do as a manager under different circumstances, and he failed, says Francis Gatzinsi. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. They should fire the medical team and not Ten Hag, says NMI. Do you actually believe this? They would have said already if he was staying. Well, they would have said already if he had left. I think the board have been left in a really difficult position. And I think we don't really know what they're going to do. And I think they were shocked by that FA Cup final performance. I think everyone, including you, including me, including you, and let me know if you share any different views, thought that United were going to lose. I thought it was a pretty nailed-on decision that they were going to be losing that game. Tuchel will bring defensive stability instantly. Do you not think we were good enough against City defensively? I thought that's the best defensive performance against City we've seen in years. Another thing that Simon's done yesterday, I wanted to get all of you guys' opinions on this, is that it'll be Sir Jim Ratcliffe and one of the Glazers leading the decision process behind the decision behind sacking Ten Hag or keeping Ten Hag. What do we all think about this? Do we think it's a smart option, or do you think it's just Glazers 2.0? Now, I think Erik Ten Hag is great, but we need new players who play right wing, striker, etc., and a replacement for Aaron Wan-Bissaka till he gains experience, says Aaron Lee. He won because he went away from his tactics. This is not his default. I think they are smart decision makers. He will be gone. Do you not think he had to go away from his tactics because of the players he had at his disposal? At a possession, Erik Ten Hag did fantastically well against City, says L.A. Matthews. I agree. I agree completely. Joel Glazer, parasite, says Gaz Elliott. I completely agree with you. Irvin XO says, shock that Leacher and Varane returned and we played well. I completely agree. Ten Hag has gone on about it a lot recently in his press conferences, saying that we really need that centre-back partnership and it's absolutely key to his system. A left-footed centre-back and a right-footed centre-back. They just allow us to play so much more. You've got a really good cover defender in Raphael Varane. He's brilliant at backing off. Lissandro is the much more physical force. You saw that tackle he put in against Foden. Well, that tackle against Foden. And you saw how good Varane was in the air. Having those really good centre-back profiles is so important to this side. I get SJR but not Glazer. Should be Jason Wilcox IMO. I completely agree with that, Irvin. I completely agree with that. I think that's a really key thing that we need to go on. We need to move away from Joel Glazer, Avram Glazer calling all of the shots. They're not people to take us through. We've seen how well it works, letting bankers, letting businessmen making the decision. At the end of the day, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is that. He's supposed to have brought these footballing minds together, like Wilcox, like Ashworth, like Bavada, in the hopes of making a really informed and correct managerial decision. Bringing Javi Simmons on loan. Kian Dowling says, no, he stuck with his way the whole season up until the stories of Wilcox telling him to change to a possession style. Yeah, I get that. I do think there was a change when Wilcox was brought in, but don't you think that shows Ten Hag being adaptable, listening to advice? Joel Glazer would keep Ten Hag, potentially, I think, but he's been more ruthless with Louis van Gaal. Louis van Gaal won an FA Cup and his wife was told during the game that he'd been gone. So I don't know whether he would keep Ten Hag. Who would you bring in to replace Varane? That's a very interesting question. We'll get onto transfers in a bit. His setup was garbage, regardless of injuries. I think it was, but I think he's proved every time we've had Varane, every time we've had Martinez in the side, we've been a much, much better squad and a much, much, much better system. Is it confirmed that the news will be out today, says Aaron Lee? No. Nobody knows when the news is going to be released. They said it could take weeks, which does feel ever increasingly Glazers. It does feel like a Glazers 2.0 in that regard. I hate jumping to conclusions. I hate jumping to that. But to me, it does. You're getting the sense of it a little bit. Jithan Joseph says there was a Muppeteers podcast in which James said that review had already happened in Monaco. Potentially, but that's not what they're briefing to the press. And I think that just shows they either want to let the dust settle a little bit before they make their final decision, or they are still talking about it behind the scenes. I don't think he had a choice, to be honest. That's our new style, and it wasn't until he changed to a possession style we started seeing improvements. His style isn't suited for the Premier League, but it is suited to, I think, the Champions League. I think it is suited to cup competitions. I think Erik ten Hag, using the system he used against City, could very easily win a Champions League. I think it could be very easily win a Champions League. He reminds me very similar to Tuchel in that he's a cup manager. After FA Cup news broke, that review is still going on, says Jithan Joseph. What does the chat think? Do we think that the Glazers 2.0 is Ineos? Do we think they are going to be following that line and making really rash, reactionary decisions? Or do we think we are moving towards something different? We are moving towards a new beginning, a new light, a revolutionary way of looking at football in the style of City, in the style of Liverpool. Mainu says, mates, we finished bottom of our group. Andre Onana cost us the Champions League. Andre Onana cost us the Champions League. I like Onana. I don't think we should sell him. I think he's an excellent keeper, but he lost us the Champions League. Francis Getzitzi says they want Erik ten Hag to give up control and accept new terms under Ineos. I think that's true. I think that will be the case. And I do think if Erik ten Hag has to stay on, I think he would and almost wish to relinquish that control a little bit. I think he trusts Ineos. I think he trusts the decision makers. I think he backs them in being able to bring him players and bring in better players. Ten Hag has to be sacked, and I still think he will, says WY. Any opinions on the if Ineos are Glazers 2.0? Do we think they are? Let's see some yeses or nos in the chat. Anyone's got any ideas about it? NMI says, can Erik Ten Hag replicate Ajax-style possession UCL in 2019 to Man United? It's been 2 years and we hardly dominate possession against every team. We've not been looking to dominate possession. I don't think we're looking to dominate possession, at least prior to Jason Wilcox coming in. Prior to Jason Wilcox coming in, I don't think we look to dominate possession. We look to play very quick, transitional football in, quote-unquote, the United way. Mainu says, out of the candidates to replace him, who's my preferred choice? It would be, out of all of them still available, it would be Thomas Tuchel. I think he's the ideal man to take us forward. He loves the club. Like, everyone's seen that interview of him. He seems to have a real affinity, a real closeness to the club, and I really think he could push us on. I think he connects really well with the fans. Everyone's seen that celebration clip of him running down the sideline with one of those old FIFA songs playing in the background. And that, to me, is what a Manchester United manager is. He has charisma. He has that, I hate the word, but he has that aura about him. And I think I would love him as Manchester United manager. A lot of people in the chat really wanted him earlier. Do you agree with me? Do you think that's why you want him, or is it more tactical reasons you'd like him? Maynard says, Thomas Frank then, if that's our style. Thomas Frank is, I think, he's a good coach. I think he is a good coach. I don't want to use the word great with him, because I don't think he's been tried and tested at a high level. I think good is probably the best word to use for him. Brentford in the Championship played lovely, fast-flowing, really quite elegant football, and he's adaptable and smart enough to know that's not going to work in the Premier League, not with his squad. He's shown glimpses of it, but I think the way he's adapted by using Tony, by using Abuemo, I think it's really clever. I think he's done really well with that. Let's see what everyone is saying. Francis Gatzinski is saying, too early to assess Ineos. They've barely got started. They don't leak as much as the press wants to lead us to think. Then how did Jacob Steinberg know? I think that's my massive problem with it. There's been rumblings, it was Chelsea's camp. There's been rumblings, it was McKenna's camp who leaked it. But realistically, it's been known in a lot of circles for a while. There's always been this rumbling of sort of this feeling that Erik Ten Hag would leave at the end of the season. May says, I like Tuchel, he's my preferred choice. Samuel Dewan says, agreed, mate, thank you very much. Irvin, he's been very vocal today, says, now I think it's just a one-off situation when it feels like it as no one expected United to win, so the board has panicked. I think that is so true. The McKenna situation, the briefing about him, screamed desperation. It screamed desperation. The fans would want Frank out in one season. Yes, Gaz, I agree with you. I just don't think we get behind him. He's a very different manager to Tuchel. Tuchel's so charismatic. He's so strong. His personality just sort of it exudes Manchester United. And Thomas Frank exudes at the moment Brentford. And it'd have to be a real transformative approach to his character to get people on side with it, I feel. Basnet says, sort of full tactical analysis of what Ten Hag is doing this season by increasing the technical ability of the squad, by increasing the physical ceiling of the squad. That's why hence more injuries. Yeah, I think that's true. We heard a lot about earlier in the year, the Muppeteers were very vocal on it, about the training being really intense. Scott McTominay mentioned it in an interview. He said after the game, I've asked the gaffer to have a little calmer training sessions because it's just so much for them. And Scott's someone who can really handle that. He's made loads of appearances this season. He's a big, strong boy. He could definitely handle the physicality, and even he struggled. So I think it's a medium with it. I think we have to almost find a Goldilocks moment with Ten Hag, physicality and training. I think that's what we have to find. Give it Giggsy at the end of the season. How well did that go last time? Jithian Joseph says, FA Cup win and Goldbridge minions making noise delayed the decision, I think. I think it's more than Goldbridge minions. I think there was a real shift in feelings towards Ten Hag following the FA Cup final, not just from Goldbridge. Erik Ten Hag has delivered back-to-back trophies since Fergie. He deserves to say second season play without natural left-back. You know what, the second comment I think is really fair. He has struggled in his back line. Ten Hag is a man who plays out from the back, who loves progressing the ball from that first phase, breaking lines. And to me, we've lacked those left-footed players. We've had Johnny Evans play as our left-sided centre-back for a lot of the season. At left-back, we've had Dalot play. We've had Aaron Wan-Bissaka, for God's sake. I adore Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I would never sell the man. But as a left-back, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen on a football pitch. So I do agree with you. On the first point, though, everyone remembers that quote that Ole said that trophies are for ego. What does everyone think about that? Do you agree that Ten Hag is very much an ego-driven manager with these trophies and it's just papering over the cracks? Or do we think maybe it's something different? Maybe it actually does show progress? What does everyone think in the chat? Richard Hawkins says, my problem with Ineos is this. Their lack of making a decision on what they are doing about Erik Ten Hag could start to affect our business in the transfer markets. I disagree with this completely. I completely disagree with this because the way we're looking at it, I mean, we saw the Custis from The Sun released the 5 rules in which Manchester United are going to have to follow. I'm going to get those up very quickly on my phone. But I think one of the big rules was Ten Hag or the squad or the coaching staff or whoever's in charge at that point will be presented with 3 options, 3 players which they could sign. And to me, I think that's around a similar strategy they'll take. They won't let Ten Hag have the be-all and end-all decision on which players they target. We are not going to have another Anthony situation. Not a chance. I don't see us going anywhere near something like that. The 5 rules for anyone who hasn't missed it. If you want to get any more of these news, this constant stream you're seeing on the screen right now, go to MUFC MPB on Twitter, give us a follow, and you can get all the latest Manchester United news there. But the 5 rules are age limit of 25 for new signings, no Galacticos, style of play to be set by technical director Jason Wilcox, manager to be asked what position he wants to sign, not the player, and Ineos to send list of 3 signings per position for manager to choose from. That to me are all very interesting. To me, it seems very much like how Real Madrid run it, especially with the 25 age thing. I don't think you could tell me a permanent signing, which Madrid have made in the last few years, that is over the age of 25. And Mbappe, when they're signing him this summer, will be 25 years old. Let's see what the chat's saying, shall we? Kian Dowling says, they weren't. Bavada, Wilcox, Ashworth all want a new manager. They're the only voices SGR is going to listen to. You don't interview managers and narrow down a shortlist if he is saying, but that shortlist is decreasing so quickly. McKenna, their preferred candidate, is gone. I think the really big argument at the moment with Ten Hag inners is that there's no better manager, on the market. Gitsini says, Ollie also says 38 games show you the actual progress. I agree. Did we make any progress? At times we have. That game against City in the FA Cup final was the best I felt about United in years, but I also think it's the best game we've ever coached since Sir Alex Ferguson. And that's my opinion. Svensson says, what do you think about João Felix swap rumour? I haven't heard anything about that. My opinion is keep João Felix far, far, far away from this football club, please. I do not want him anywhere close to it. Dylan McBennett says, trophies can hide the true progress of a team in terms of its development, but it's also not a bad habit either. It's a 50-50 thing. That's probably the fairest assessment of it. I think you don't not want to go too hot with it, not want to go too cold with it. Having that gold-look sort of mentality, especially to progress, is a really good way of looking at it. Right, Roderick is coming in strong with Ten Hag in. I wonder how many in the chat, please let me know. I'd like to see, if you want Ten Hag to stay at this football club, please let me know right now. I'd love to see. Because we had a really big Tuchel cohort in earlier. Let's see if the Ten Hag inners are just as loud. It's either Tuchel or De Zerbi. Attacking Football recently put out that we are not even talking to De Zerbi despite reports. Same as Chelsea. It seems he's taking his time, waiting a little bit. Irvin says papers, yes, but it's also the fact how he's shown what he can do in big games with a full fit team, excluding Shaw, which is what intrigues a lot of fans. And yeah, again, a really fair comment to say. A really fair comment. Dylan McBennett goes with Hagi in. Jithy Joseph replies with Ten Hag out. It's very mixed. It's so 50-50. It's so 50-50 with Erik Ten Hag at the moment. Erik Ten Hag out, says Sunil Dewan. It's a real split. It's a real split. We'll spend 2 more minutes on Ten Hag. If anyone's got any more questions, please let me know. And then we'll probably move on to transfers amongst other things. Do you think Joseph Newton Heath says sack, sack, sack? Kian Dowling says that's the thing people are confusing. It's not about being a better manager. SJR wants a better coach, communicator, builder. Many reports that he doesn't care about the past achievements. Now, yes, you are right. If anyone's familiar with Sir David Brailsford, look into his cycling teams. Look into how he runs them. He sees it as communication and marginal gains. That's the reason I thought Potter was going to be the first choice, because the way he sets up his systems, the way it's constantly adapting, the way it's constantly changing, constantly innovating, to me it shows he's very adaptable. He's getting those marginal gains always. And that Brighton team, I'm not talking about that Chelsea period, because to me, anything that happens to that football club is null and void. It's chaotic. But that Brighton team, was excellent. It shifted on a whim. It was very clever. It exploited weaknesses in its opponents constantly. So to me, that's why I thought Potter would be brought in. But yes, no, I agree with you, Kian. He does want a better coach, communicator, builder. But is there a better one around? NMI says, should Maguire be at the club? He performed decent this season, but struggled when playing a high line and a bit slow. So that's a really nice segue into the transfer segment, which we're going to get onto now. Should Maguire be at the club? A tweet came out yesterday, it should be on the screen at some point, saying that United are looking at a new centre-back, a new midfielder, defensive midfielder, and a new striker. So very quickly in the chat, does anyone have any centre-backs they want at the club? And I think the big question I'm going to ask is, which centre-backs would you want to leave? Because it's pretty obvious we're looking at Todibo. It's pretty obvious we're looking at Branthwaite. But do we have any other centre-backs we want to move on and bring in? Let me know in the chat. My opinion on Harry Maguire is he's been an excellent servant to the club. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary stick. And I feel he was captain at one of the worst times of this football club. He had all of the abuse rained down upon him and he still bounced back. And to me, that's commendable. And I think if we sell him for anything less than £45 million, it's a mistake. It's a massive mistake. I think his mentality is top. I think his box defending is top. In many ways, pardon me, he could become our version of Rob Holding. Remember when Arteta would bring Rob Holding out and play a 5-back in the final minutes of the game just to close it out? I can really see Maguire being used like that. Jordan Collins says Todibo not going to the Euros. Straightforward deal to do and have him ready for next season. Yeah, I agree. It's a very easy deal. It's quite cheap as well, obviously, with the Nice connection. So yeah, I think that's a deal that will get done by this football club. Dylan McBennett says Maguire has been United's best defender overall since Fergie left IMO in terms of availability and performances. Martin is not far off. That's quite a strong statement to make, Dylan. Personally, Varane is the best defender we've had since Sir Alex Ferguson left. Remember that quote that what Ten Hag said to Varane in the celebrations? You always win, eh? You always win. But that's what Varane does. He always wins. And the fact that he's leaving, it's a massive shame. Irvin XO says Todibo for Lindelof, one of the biggest upgrades. Yeah, I think that's a deal that probably is going to happen. I can see Lindelof leaving the club this summer. Another thing we need to look about is Jared Branthwaite. Sky Sports News recently said that Jared Branthwaite is a player we're looking at actively and we're having conversations with them. And to me, Branthwaite is a player we should definitely be bringing in, not just for a centre-back role, but for a left-back role. We know how unreliable is probably the best way to say Shaw is. Malacia has been injured for a long time. And to me, bringing Branthwaite as a centre-back hybrid left-back is a really positive and progressive step. Look at how City use their left-backs with Nathan Ake, Josko Gvardiol. Look how Arsenal use their right-backs with Ben White. It's all about putting our centre-backs out wide, having that real physical ceiling raised, and allowing a far more defensive backline. Instead of having the Jeremy Frimpongs on both sides running down the wing, just having a Jeremy Frimpong and a Jared Branthwaite would be a perfect fullback partnership. What do people think about that? Jared Branthwaite coming in to play as a centre-back and a left-back. Keane Dowling says, of course, Ten Hag isn't the best communicator. Jordan Collins says, I like Branthwaite, but wouldn't be overpaying for him. He's not worth 70 to 80 million pounds. Not yet. I think he is worth a good 50 to 60 million pounds. I agree with you, Jordan. NMI says, what do you think about Luke Shaw? He always performs but not available and missed so many games since he was signed in 2014. Luke Shaw is the best left-back in world football. In fact, I'd say he's a top 20 player in world football overall. He is phenomenal. As a player, he is incredible. He is really rather fantastic. There is nothing he can't do. He works brilliantly with Marcus Rashford. He is superb on the outside. He can invert now. He became progressively more comfortable over doing it last season. He can make runs on the inside, make runs on the outside. A wonderful ball in, and an all right finisher as well. Kid down says Branthwaite and Todibo are must Simo. Both can bring centre back. Both can play centre back, and both could play full back and inverting into a back three. I agree with you perfectly, Cian Dowling. Need a left back still. Do you not think Luke Shaw, Malacia, and Branthwaite is a good enough left back depth chart? Especially with Dalla being able to play there as well, with the idea of bringing Frimpong in. Those links haven't went away. We've not heard too much about it recently, but there's been nothing denying our interest. Basnet says, to be fair, English is not his first language, hence it's difficult for him to convey his thoughts to the press. What do people think about the left-back situation? And the centre-back situation as well. Gaddafi says, I need Kevin Damsmo and Todibo centre-back Edison CDM. I haven't heard anything about this Edison midfielder. I haven't heard lots about him. He's a Brazilian one, isn't he? I haven't heard much, unfortunately. Let's move on to midfielders, shall we? So, defensive midfielder, Casemiro is leaving. As you've seen on the screen today, Casemiro apparently had a massive bust-up with Erik ten HAG. He didn't actually make the bench for the FA Cup final for a quote-unquote injury. Injury's been debated. I believe Adam McCullough came out and said that apparently a bust-up happened. Joseph says it's either Kerekes or Aït-Nouri. That Wolves left back, by the way, is phenomenal. He's been wonderful this season, as well as Anthony Robinson. But I just don't see United being smart enough to make that move. Dowling says Martinez can also play left back too and has the capacity to invert. Todibo and Branthwaite offer lots of options formation-wise. Again, Cian's been on an absolute roll today. Should be doing my job for me. I completely agree with you. That's the whole point of this. Please keep commenting. Please like and subscribe. Please, please, please get involved. I want to build a community here. Every morning at 11 a.m, I will be here discussing United with you. I really want to see what conversations we can have on this channel. Banerjee says Edison or Fofana for CDM. Someone get me a quick summary on Edison. I'd love to learn more about him. Fofana is a wonderful suggestion. He's not too expensive. Attacking football exclusively confirmed that he would be coming. Not that he would be coming. That we've come into contact, with his representatives, and we are talking to him. He's a man who's been alongside too many. He's done really well on his own, dealing in a single pivot. I think he'd be a perfect man to come in. We should go for David Raum as left back. For midfield, the options are Højlund, Fofana, and João Gomez. João Gomez is a name that really intrigues me. I just don't think he has the physical qualities to bring to the squad. It's partly why I desperately want Amadou Onana, the Everton midfielder, because he's an absolute unicorn player. Have you seen him? He's tall, he's strong, the long limbs are just perfect at taking passes away, intercepting, tackling. He is the ideal defensive midfielder, and I think I was speaking to H about this, and he said that if you wanted to build a midfielder to perfectly complement Kobbie Mainoo, you'd buy Amadou Onana, and I completely agree with him. Edison is from Atalanta. Edison will fall as a lone 6. He is more box-to-box. We're not looking for a box-to-box midfielder. We already have Kobbie Mainoo. We already have Mason Mount. And Mason Mount, mark my words, will be one of the best players in the league next season. I promise you. And probably Amadou Onana, also depending on sales and budget and price sensitivity. And Joseph, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Amrabat and Fofana, Archie Gray for defensive midfielder, Todibo, Tosin, Xerxes or Vangelis. Pavaldis from Alkmaar for striker. I've not heard at all about that striker. Andrew Karakuki, can you please, sorry if I butchered your last name. Can you tell me a bit more about him, please? But Archie Gray, as much as I'd love him to happen, I'd love to look more into the Championship with Adam Wharton becoming such a starlet in the Premier League in recent weeks and months. I don't think Archie Gray will come to Manchester United. I do not see that as a deal that's happening as he's a Leeds boy through and through. How can the review be happening now if Blanc was at F1, Ratcliffe is in Finland and Joel is in Florida? Could it have already happened during the big meeting in Monaco, May 14th? I don't know. I'm assuming we'll find out very soon. I'm watching you for the first time today. Keep it up. Thank you, Joseph Joe. I really appreciate it. Basnet says he saw Edison in the Europa League final. He physically dominated Wirtz and Xhaka. Not that technical on the ball, but has a good physical presence. Basnet, tonight I'm going to be watching the Europa League final, and I expect to see you here tomorrow, and we'll have a little chat about him then. I don't think Onana's good enough personally in the midfield. We should bring in Palacios from Leverkusen, says WY. Onana is certainly good enough in the midfield. If you're talking about him not being used at Everton so far this year, there's been other problems about that. I think Everton fans have voiced their confusion about why he's not been playing. So I don't really think it's on him for not really getting the minutes he probably deserves. Kean Dowling, Onana reminds me of Pogba, just a defensive version. Onana and Fofana would be an ideal starter. It would be ideal as a starter/rotation. Onana, Fofana, Mainu, Mount, Bruno is nice depth. What about Sofian Amrabat? Sofian Amrabat impressed me immensely in the FA Cup final. Would you guys keep him around? He would cost us around 20 million euros to sign him permanently. Does anyone here fancy him? Again, can we push to 30 likes as well, guys? I would really appreciate it. If you even somewhat enjoyed today, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like. Onana is class, says Kadali. I agree with you. I think he's been a standout for Everton this season when he has played. Koki says, Pavardis is 25 years. Target man can hold up play, scores, goals and value for money at maybe 20 to 30 million pounds. So we're going to do that as a nice segue into the striker position. Who would everyone bring in for that? I have a really strong opinion on who I want for my striker position. I have a really strong opinion. Let's hear what you guys are saying. WY says, I don't want Amrabat. Why not? Why not? I think that first game, everyone sung his praises. He was phenomenal as that left back playing, doing all the simple things really, really well. And that's what Amrabat is excellent at. Not as a starting six. He is not a man to lead us into Champions League, even into Europa League, but in the Carabao Cup, in the FA Cup, in maybe games against where we're going to dominate the ball, where he can sit in almost a third centre-back in a back three with both centre-backs either side of him and see the whole game in front of him. Why wouldn't you want Sofian Amrabat? Why wouldn't you? And Jordan Collins agrees with me. He says, I think Amrabat has shown with more game time he can be a useful rotation player. I completely agree with you, mate. NMI says Man United should sign low-profile players and turn them into beasts, etc. Robertson from Hull City to Liverpool. My suggestion for striker is Serol Guirassy, the Borussia Mönchengladbach striker, who I think he came second in the Bundesliga top goal scorer race this year. He came second, just behind, obviously, Harry Kane. I think any striker in world football would find it difficult to keep up with him. However, I think he would be a wonderful player to bring in. For only 15 million euros, by the way. That's his release clause. That's his release clause. Kian Dowling says Morata or Guirassy, both under 20 million, ideal backups with good experience. Morata's an interesting one. He's been everywhere, it feels like. It's like he has one of the best agents in the world, even better than Choupo-Moting. But I wouldn't bring him in personally. I think if you had the choice between Morata or Guirassy, I think Guirassy has scored more goals, not more consistently, but more recently. I think everyone felt, at the start, like in January, all those rumours were swirling about. Everyone felt that he would be a potential option, and then we heard less and less about him. But if you watch his overall play, he's got a long diagonal in his locker. He can play that Harry Kane role if he really wants to be like a deep lying forward. He did it at Stade Reims when he was at France. So I think he's got that bit about him to be a Manchester United striker and be more than just a gunman at the top. I think he can really help to overall play. What would be Guirassy price? 15 million euros. That's his release clause. West Ham are looking at him. I think I remember seeing Aston Villa maybe having a little sneaky look at him. But I think when sides like Aston Villa, who've been excellent on the market recently, are having a little look at him, I think it'd be a perfect time to sort of have a little look at what they're doing. Kariki says, Amrabat permanent signing, plus Fofana would solve the midfield option entirely, or get Erik Martel at Köln or Coney at Mönchengladbach. Coney, again, he was linked with Liverpool last summer, if I'm not mistaken. A real hard-working young talent. Very much an 8, though, I feel. He's not a number 6. He's not a number 6. Do you fancy Victor Boniface? He's never leaving Leverkusen this season. Not a chance. I'd love him. I think he's such a wonderful player to watch. He enjoys himself every time he's on the pitch. He's got so much expression behind him. He's also a very good gunman. Got a very good 2 feet. Personally, would go for Xerxes. Quite a few people, quite a few tacticos on Twitter are really pushing for that. Quite a few tacticos on Twitter because of his ability to drop deep, because of his ability to link up play. I wouldn't say he's the best goal scorer in the world. And I think if we're looking to bring in another number 9, replacing the departing Anthony Martial, you've seen the graphic up on screen. You need a striker who can provide around 8 to 12 goals as a backup number 9, I feel. And Jordan Collins just told me that Romano have tweeted that Dortmund are advancing in talks with Sergio Garcia, which is an absolute shame, I feel. It's a very smart piece of business. I think he does suit the German league, but I do think he'd be an excellent signing for United. Irvin says Boniface won't leave unless we took Frimpong. Yeah. Morata isn't a good enough role model as he isn't composed, and we've seen how he misses easy finishes, says Irvin. I disagree that he's not a good role model. He's competed at the highest level. He's competed in top competitions internationally as well. I think he is a good role model in his professionalism. I just don't think his finishing ability is quite up to scratch as a Manchester United striker. Any update regarding our medical staff for next season, says Sir Addison. I'm not too sure about that. I remember hearing a while back that we don't currently have a proper medical staff, and I think we're looking into that now in like the big long in-season review. It's not just of Erik ten Hag, it's on the club as a whole. WY says we should look at Patrick Schick. He was the lad who did he score the halfway line goal at one of the international tournaments recently? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to think back. He impressed at one of the tournaments, didn't he? I really think he did. Gaddafi says German football is very easy to play. I like Man United to play from the Premier League. Yeah, German football has this unfair stigma about players, about being a farmers' league with Bayern Munich. But to me, players can thrive in the Premier League. They just have to adapt and take their time. Jadon Sancho is someone who came into the Premier League and really struggled with the physicality of it. And I think if he probably was introduced a bit slower and a bit more gently, I really think he could have thrived here. Irvin says, yeah, he impressed in the last Euros. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Any other transfer suggestions we're thinking about? Anyone got a Vogue shout to bring in as a transfer? Yeah, Jack for Schick did score the halfway line goal. Thank you. Is the Sesko thing cooling off? Says Banerjee. That's interesting. I would despise having Sesko at Manchester United, not because he's not a fantastic player. I think he's a wonderful young player. But does everyone remember when we brought Ibrahimovic in a few years ago? And I loved Ibra. I thought he was wonderful at the club. I thought he did very, very well. But remember what it did to Martial? It completely shot his confidence. Same as Rooney. Wayne Rooney, one of our greatest ever players. He was shut down by it because he was completely replaced in the pecking order, and with a young striker who clearly is a confidence player in the form of Rasmus Højlund. I feel we really need to focus on building up his confidence and focusing on him, providing an older, probably a bit of a wiser striker to look after him. And Sesko's far too expensive for a backup. I completely agree with you. I don't think if you put Sesko and Højlund against each other, I think you completely ruin one of those talents. Chithy and Joseph says we aren't spending big on a striker, so stop putting names like Sesko and Schick. Muppeteers have said we prefer an older striker on cheap price. I like the way we're going with that. I haven't seen that, so thank you so much for telling me. Another player we haven't talked about, who seems to be a dead set to sign off for Manchester United this summer, is Elise. Elise is apparently got a release clause around 60 million euros, though some reports have indicated to it being quite a negotiable release clause. Does anyone fancy Elise? Speaking of Crystal Palace, Mateta as a number 2. He's had a really fun purple patch where he tore apart Johnny Evans, who hadn't even passed his fitness test. To me, he's playing in a system with with Eberechi Eze, Elise beside him. No striker is going to suffer from a lack of chances with that system. Sisko's issues have been performance-related add-ons. After his release clause was only 40 million. I still think that's too expensive. I still think that's about double the price we'd be willing to pay. WS is supporting Olympiacos tonight. What is supporting Olympiacos then? Are they playing in Europe? Have they got a cup competition? Are they fighting for a title? Let me know. Why am I hearing Chelsea close to Elise rumours recently? I haven't. I've been aware of that. And I think it's because Chelsea are showing an active interest. I remember they were showing an interest. Remember that whole saga? They had a deal agreed with him. They were so close to signing at the last minute. All fell apart. It all collapsed. So I think it's inevitable they're going to come back in for him again. If Elise comes, what happens with Ahmad and Anthony? I hope Anthony gets sent off to the farthest reaches of Brazil or the deepest, darkest Peru. I would never want to see him back. I really do not have a lot of time for Anthony whatsoever. And with Ahmad, I love Ahmad. My old Twitter handle used to be a madness. If any of you have been following me for that long. I love Ahmad. He's probably my favourite player at United. So I think I'm quite biased when it comes to this. But even if you bring Elise in, Ahmad's performance. Remember that goal against Newcastle? Lovely half volley off the floor. No one at United can do that apart from him. Apart from maybe Bruno. I really think Ahmad is a special, special talent. I saw a tweet saying it's like if Messi hadn't had any minutes before the age of 21. I don't quite agree with that. But I do think there's stylistic comparisons to be made. And I do think he is a profile that is so valuable. And if we sell him, which some people have indicated we might, I think it would be a massive, massive, massive shame. Gaddafi says, Wolves Cunha. Mateus Cunha, again, he reminds me a lot of Xerxes in that he's excellent at holding up the ball, progressing the ball. Pardon me. Even almost similar to like Jesus as well. Linking up play, but not really a goal scorer. And we need a goal scorer. Kariuki says, Ahmad or Elise? Both. We're Manchester United Football Club. Why can't we have both? Basnet says, keep Ahmad, loan Anthony. I'd sell Anthony as quick as possible. I'd terminate the man's contract. It won't happen under Erik ten Hag, but I do think the club will make a real strong move to move him on if Ten Hag does leave the club. Any update about Ten Hag's future? So we might have some more people in the chat. I'd love to know your opinions on Ten Hag's future very quickly. We'll circle back that to 2 minutes before moving on. WY says we need Tuchel ball at the theatre next season. I'd like Tuchel ball at the theatre next season. Are you streaming every day, says WY? Yes, I am. I will be here every day at 11 a.m. Please subscribe so you never miss a stream that I'm doing. Whether you're watching or whether you're listening to it as a podcast, please come along. I really want to build a wonderful community here where we talk every day, talking about Manchester United, what we all love. WY says, sell Anthony. You're speaking my mind. Jithian Joseph says, are there any clubs other than after Sancho other than Dortmund? I don't think so. Saudi Arabia are always going to be an option. They're always going to be an option. But I don't think Jaden's going to move there anytime soon. I think he seems to be really enjoying himself at United. Not United, at Dortmund. I think my thing with Jaden is that he went through quite a rough patch in Ten Hag's first season at the club. There was clearly something going on. I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows what happened to Jadon Sancho. He went away. He got sent to the Netherlands to go under camp there to sort of rehabilitate not only his physical performances, but also his mindset and his mental health. And I praise him really for getting into a place where he feels comfortable and happy and playing football at his very best. Because he stole the show in that semi-final in both legs. Everyone saw those compilations. He was phenomenal. So yeah, I really hope he does. I'd like him to go to Dortmund. I also just don't think he fits in at Erik ten Hag's Manchester United either. Gaddafi says Anthony left back. I mean, if you have to put him somewhere in the squad, keep him far away from the opposition's goal as possible, personally. Karika says, Erik Ten Hag in all day. Anyone agree with that in the chat? Anyone agree with that? Basnet says, Kim Min-jae not happy at Bayern. I'm assuming that's what you mean. Do you think we can pull him? We're not at a club, mate. But Kim Min-jae is a player who's been very highly rated by lots of people within United circles for a while. We were looking at him when he moved to Bayern Munich. I do feel, if there was an opportunity, we would explore it. I do think he's a bit too much money at £50 million. I do think Ineos want to focus on a more English-British core. So bringing in players like Branthwaite and bringing in a player like Todibo, all not British. He's at Nice, so it's a much easier deal to make. Harry David says, I think player recruitment will ultimately have more of an impact than who the head coach is. Ten Hag, Poch and De Zerbi could all be successful if we got the recruitment right. Wow. That's quite a strong opinion, Harry. Not devaluing, but sort of putting down the role of a coach, which, you know what, I do agree with to an extent. Great players make the tactics. At the end of the day, that's all football is. It's putting the best players on the pitch in their best roles. No one will buy Anthony with the sort of salary he is on, barring Saudi, so fingers crossed for a Saudi bid. I don't think Saudi will go anywhere near Anthony. No one will. Not on the wages he's on. Todibo says Kadali. Yeah. Should we have a little talk about transfers going out? And the ones that's been picking up some steam in the last few days, at least coverage-wise, is Mason Greenwood. Mason Greenwood is quite a valuable asset in the extent that he is a homegrown player. So if we sell him, it's all pure profit, and it really helps us with our financial fair play. Would anyone does anyone know where they'd want Mason Greenwood to move to? Would they want him to go to an English club? They want him to go overseas. He's not going back to Getafe. He said goodbye to them on his Instagram and maybe Twitter. I don't know if he's on Twitter anymore. Jithian Joseph says there is no chance for Pochettino. I don't think there's any chance for Pochettino. I reckon after the tumultuous time he's had at Chelsea, he'd probably look for a bit of time off. I think that's fair for him, to be honest. I think it's quite fair for him. Lebega says, when is the review going to be complete about Ten Hag's future? Who knows? Again, we get so many conflicting reports. And I do think it will be sometime early next week or late this week, Friday or Monday next week. I don't think it'll happen over the weekend. United seem to, at least in the past, it might have changed now with Ineos, and hopefully it has. They've been quite hesitant to release any news on the weekend. Sorry. Gitsini says, a bit behind, but did I just hear that Højlund is not a good enough finisher? He is a good enough finisher. He's just a confidence player. I think what you might have been thinking about is Alvaro Morata. I was speaking about him and him not being a good enough finisher. Greenwood overseas at IMO, Atleti or Juve, or Borussia Dortmund. I believe that came out last night. Him linking up with Sancho over there. Urban says, what are your thoughts on Amas? I think we've all seen that compilation that's been going around, and he looks like a worldie of a player. He could really be something that we could build off for the future, which is why I'm quite hesitant about signing an out-and-out left-back, like a Miguel Gutierrez, for example, from Girona, and why I'm more in favour of signing a Branthwaite to be as a hybrid left-back, just to sort of fill in the gap before we get Amas into the first team, which I think might happen a little bit next season, but it's something that will be happening in 2 seasons' time, for certainty. Bassett says, Atletico Madrid fancy Greenwood. I believe I would love Llorente's swap deal. Llorente reminds me of a Snyder, it reminds me of a Gaetan, it reminds me of a player that we're always linked to, who an agent is always using Manchester United's name to create interest and will never, ever come to us. Anyone who's in all 40 of you, please like and subscribe. I'll be doing this every single day, the daily MPB morning show hosted by myself. I'd love for you to all come down every day and to show your support and really just have a good conversation about Manchester United. Any other outgoings we're thinking of? We spoke about the centre-back partnerships earlier. We spoke about Harry Maguire. We spoke about Victor Lindelof. Rafael Varane's left. Casemiro is probably going to leave. Would anyone keep Casemiro? That'd be quite a rogue opinion to have. Would anyone keep Casemiro? Scroll back up. I believe, yes, Javi David said a comment a while back. I think a bad coach could harm us, but I believe that all three are good coaches. Tuchel as well. Look at Ranieri at Leicester. He's not considered a world-class manager, but their recruitment was amazing. Again, I think what Ranieri got perfectly with Leicester is he puts those brilliant players in their best possible profiles. He put them exactly where he wanted them to be, exactly where they would thrive. And N'Golo Kante started out as a winger, didn't he? He wasn't like a box-to-box 6 hybrid. He started out as a winger, and one game he got brought into the midfield, and he just started running everywhere and winning everything. And it's those sort of decisions which Ten Hag has sort of done to a very lesser extent, but like talking about perfect profiling here with Scott McTominay. And that's something which we need to see more of him. Muppeteers said SJR is in Finland in a yacht and Joel is in Florida. Wilcox in London. Interim CEO is not here either, so it means review is already over. We just botched up the announcement due to the FA Cup. That would surprise me, considering all the chatter that's coming out. We've had sources from all over saying that some within Ineos are now pushing towards it. And just because they're all over the world, like look what we're doing right now. We're having a stream, everybody. So there's no reason they can use Zoom, they can use any other thing, how they could pick up a phone and call each other and just have a little talk about it. There's nothing that can stop them from doing that. No, don't keep Casemiro. Nah, Saudi can have him. Gazzini says, did you talk about Toby Collier already? He's a centre-back. No, I'm not too familiar with him. Francis, what do you know about him? Or anyone else? Irvin, linking onto Amas, which player is going to burst onto the scene next season? In a weird way, I think Alejandro Garnacho is going to burst into a world-class player next season. And this is, it's quite a strong opinion, but I see Garnacho's development going very eerily similar to the way Cristiano Ronaldo's did. Both hard-working young lads. Both love a little bit of a showboat. Both love running at the player opposite them. Both struggle when finishing to start off. I remember Ruud van Nistelrooy blasted and screamed and yelled at Cristiano Ronaldo for not putting the ball in quick enough, for his shooting not being perfect. I think that's what Garnacho needs to have. He needs to have that play. He needs to have Bruno get in his ear next season. Really push him to make the right decisions in the right areas. He's such a young lad. He's a teenager, for God's sake. I am older than Alejandro Garnacho. That boy is going to learn, and I think next season he is going to explode. I can see him being one of the best players in the Premier League next season. Sorry, Thomas Collier is a defensive midfielder. Apologies. I'm not that familiar, unfortunately. This isn't a decision to be made over Zoom, though. It feels just like semantics. As long as a conversation is had, they can do it whenever they want, I feel they can do it whenever they want. Rashford to Arsenal or PSG, here we go, 50 million. That is possibly the most insane thing that's been said today. I really appreciate it. Keep those coming in. What does everyone think about that? Rashford to Arsenal or PSG for 50 million pounds. Anyone got any strong views on that? Anyone got any ideas? To me, that is lunacy. I love Marcus Rashford. Mancunian, born and bred, came up through the academy. A proper Manchester United player. Him and Bruno Fernandes, are the only players who I really feel you could slot into any side from past United sides, and they'd slot in seamlessly. Mentality, ability, everything. Collier is a midfielder. Tell me a bit about him. You guys seem to know more about him than me. Let me know. Do you think we can move out Donny van der Beek this summer? Who? Sorry. No, it's just a name like none of us have heard for so long. I'm assuming most people have forgotten that he's still been at the club. I'm assuming most people will have forgotten. 50 million buys his left foot. I'm assuming that's in regards to Marcus Rashford. I agree. Completely agree. He is a player who is worth over 125 million pounds. He is a near Mbappe level talent. Rashford is going nowhere since Francis Cancini. Absolutely right. Though I would sell him for £18 million plus, said WY. If you feel that we can bring in an adequate replacement, fine. Francis Goodsini says, if Anthony is worth 100 million euros, what is Rashford worth? If Anthony is worth 100 million euros, I'm worth 200 million. Eden LeBega says, De Zerbi in, Ten Hag out. I don't have the strongest opinions on De Zerbi. All I know is that he will not be coming to Manchester United this summer. All the reports, I would be shocked to see him come. Obviously, I don't know for certainty, but all the reports indicating that we have no interest in him, that we've not had conversation with him, that we aren't necessarily interested in whatsoever. Rashford will shine next season. Trusted Ahmed? Absolutely. It's just an off-season. Andre Nana says it best. He's a killer. And you don't lose that mentality. Nico Williams is a good Rashford replacement. Barcelona are looking at him now. Same as Arsenal, if I'm not completely mistaken. Rashford may need to go in order to sort out the wage structure. Very overpaid, and I think he could do with a fresh start. A fresh start where? Paris Saint-Germain? Not really. Like, have you seen the way they treated Kylian Mbappe? Potentially their best ever player. Potentially one of their first ever legends. Proper, like, I mean, you've got Edison Cavani, Neymar, but their first ever French legend in the modern era. I think Kylian Mbappe is that, and they hounded him out of that club, some of them. Let's see, is there any other news that's come through? Oh, I remember someone mentioning earlier about youngsters and minutes. Do people think in the chat that players like Rasmus Højlund, Alejandro Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo who've been played too much this season? Mainoo is £1 billion as Gaddafi. I wouldn't even sell him for that. Irvin says the PR De Zerbi has is crazy. You can enjoy his style of play all you want, but we need coaches who have the mentality of experience in winning a good league title or UCL at this point. Ten Hag doesn't have that mentality of experience yet either. He's got a deep UCL run, but apart from that, what does he really have? He bottled it to Spurs. What a statement that is. He bottled it to Spurs. MLS probably more his level. Beckham can do us a favour. Let's see. Anyone else which you'd want to move on from the football club this summer? Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a name that I've been speaking to people about. If Crystal Palace came back in for him, would you move him on? Anyone got any views about that? Personally, I think he's one of the best utility players in world football. I think he's one of the best utility. He's a Swiss Army knife. You can throw him against a Kylian Mbappe, against a Jeremy Doku, and he will silence them. Everyone remembers that game against PSG, where Aaron Wan-Bissaka looked at Mbappe, he looked at Neymar, and he shrugged. He shrugged them off. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Mbappe looked like he'd seen a ghost. It makes me smile. Remember Twanzebe that game as well? Oh my God. Oh my God. LA Matthews says, linked with Inter for 10 million. I'm assuming that's about Wan-Bissaka. Again, imagine Aaron Wan-Bissaka in that Inzaghi system. Just imagine him and that right back just still sitting back the entire game, just handing off the balls to his progressive centre-backs and going, okay, I'll just do some slide tackles. He'd be immense. Says, yeah, you made me eat my words. To be fair, I wouldn't say that. We're having a discussion here. It's a community. Garnacho's been rinsed to the max, which has affected his development. People need to understand if you're fatigued, your decisions and concentration will be poor. He's also young. I think people need to realise, look at me. Alejandro Garnacho is younger than me. Like, good Lord. He's a young lad. He will learn. I'm learning on this stream with you for the first time today. Imagine how good I'm going to get. And imagine how good Alejandro Garnacho is going to get. Yes, he'd be worshipped as a god in Italy. I think it's a bit excessive, don't you think, LA? A bit excessive. But I do think he'd be fantastic, yes. Basnet says, no, I think the right back position is the least worrying position right now. Need a left back. What happens to Malacia? Malacia will stay. I don't see him being loaned out. I think the club will have learnt their lesson about not losing too many fullbacks. Such an important position we've learnt for Ten Hag. I don't know why he decided to let Reguilon leave. But yeah, guys, if you're still here, please smash the like and subscribe button. Again, we're going to be doing this every single day. If we're just joining us, we're going to be wrapping up the stream soon. So any final questions, please put them into the chat. I'd love to hear any thoughts. Knight says, who are the Premier League teams inquiring for Greenwood? Nobody knows. I mean, I think the Muppeteers said Chelsea did. Very on brand for their club. Sending out any opportunity. But No one knows. No one knows. It's very coy. I think if we'd hear anything about it, unironically, sorry, it will be the Sun, the gossip outlet. They are his mouthpiece. Jordan Collins says, time to move Aaron Wan-Bissaka on. Not good enough going forward and better options out there. But surely you can see his value at being a utility player. Surely. Erwin says, what are your thoughts on Dalot? Diogo Dalot, who's the best player at Manchester United this season. He's been absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Proper mentality, proper player. There's a reason Ronaldo likes him. I think Ronaldo was very, very problematic at this club, and probably the best thing he did is revive Dalot's career. He gave him that sort of work ethic, gave him that push. Ronaldo dropped him on a worldwide exclusive with Piers Morgan. He name-dropped him. That's how highly he thinks of him, and if Ronaldo thinks that highly of him, I think it's quite unwise to disagree with him personally. Again, any final questions, any of the roguish questions you have on Erik ten Hag, on Roberto De Zerbi, on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and who will be our vice captain if Maguire leaves? That is a really good question. Can I have some suggestions from the chat? Who do you think would be the vice captain if Harry Maguire leaves the football club? Harry Davis says, McTominay sell or new deal? New deal. New deal. I think McTominay is, like Wan-Bissaka, a really valuable squad player, and he knows his place. I think at the end of the day, he's a United lad. He's happy to sit on the bench and come on when there's injuries, or come on the last 20, 25 minutes, snatch that injury time winner. In many ways, this could be clipped really badly. But in that sense, he's almost like a modern day Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Very different positions, but in the way they think about football, the way they think about Manchester United, their love for it, I really think he's got that feeling about it. Do you think Joseph says Martinez? Obviously, Harry Davis says Lisandro Martinez. Yeah, perfect player to have as a vice captain. So many people in the chat saying Martinez. Would anyone here sell Martinez? Does anyone have any concerns about his injury record? Or do you think it's just a case of him being played too much and too much emphasis being put on him? Benzema wants to leave Saudi but can't afford his wages. Keep away from Karim Benzema with a 10-foot pole, please. He'd be here for a paycheck. Never Martinez in CDM. I don't think he's physical enough for it. He's not physical enough for it. Don't think he's physical enough for it. Injury record is unlucky. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. Again, we're 2 likes away from 30 likes on this stream, everybody. Please give a like if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Show support for the stream. No, Martinez needs to be managed. I agree. And I think bringing Jared Branthwaite would really take some of the load off him as well. Can't go wrong with an ex-Real Madrid player. I mean, looking at Varane and Casemiro. But what we've noticed about those two is either they're just physically so declined nowadays. Varane still has that top-end pace, but he's made of glass. And Casemiro is not the player he used to be, unfortunately. L.A. Matthews says, McTominay is currently the vice-captain, by the way. Well, I didn't know that. What do people think about that? Scott McTominay being the vice-captain for Manchester United. If we sack Ten Hag, will there be a chance we get Zidane? No. I don't think so. Purely because Ineos really are really attempting to build a very English core, British core of a squad. And Brailsford in particular really values communication. Zidane doesn't know English or doesn't know it very well, so I don't really understand how effectively he'd be able to communicate those ideas. And you can't really just go... He's a Real Madrid manager. He's a end product project manager. He's not going to take over this Manchester United project and transform it. Ineos giving me Glazers 2.0 vibes, said Sadasan, coming back to a conversation from earlier. I think there's a little bit of the vibes with how potentially reactionary they've been so far with the manager situation, but we'll see how that goes. Varane has been unbelievable though, says WY. He's one of my favourite players at the football club. And I'm really quite upset that he's left. He's been absolutely wonderful. Any final comments? I'm going to read out 3 more comments and then it will be time to end the stream. I really appreciate everyone coming along today. I really, really appreciate it. 3 final, the roguest, the best takes you have. Let me hear a few of them. WY says, I think they would want Zidane, but he wouldn't want you. Santi said that Ratcliffe has Zidane near top of his list, but it's unrealistic. You know what? If Zidane doesn't want Manchester United, you can't really do anything about it, and you can't even complain. You can't even complain because it's Zinedine Zidane. And if he wants to manage Real Madrid, he gets to manage Real Madrid. If he wants to manage France, he gets to manage France. Kadali says, I would like to go for Italian or German manager. I'm assuming that's De Zerbi or Tuchel. And the last comment I'm going to read out today. Thank you for letting us hit 30 likes, by the way, everybody. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the support on the stream today. Any final comments we have here at the moment? Any final comments? Tuchel's time to shine. And I think that's a really good note to end it on. Will we get Thomas Tuchel? Or will we get Erik ten Hag? That seems to be the real big consensus in the chat. WY asked, will you be back at the same time tomorrow? Absolutely, my friend. I am here every day at 11 a.m. talking to you lot. Please give MUFC MPB a follow on Twitter. Give my handle at AlexTalksAll a follow on Twitter so you never miss a stream. I really enjoyed today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you guys soon.